Hey guys, another video for our anime and manga playlist. Lots of you have probably heard about this anime already. It's another one from Miyazaki. So Miyazaki is probably Japan's most famous animation director. So he's made a lot of very, very popular animations over the years, and this is another one of them. This one in Japanese was called Kaze Tashinu, which means in English the English title is The Wind Rises. So it's sort of very, very loosely based on some real history. So the main character in the animation is the guy who was the chief designer of the Mitsubishi Zero fighter. So those of you into aeroplanes or war history or whatever might remember that the Zero was probably the best fighter aircraft of its type when it was first developed in World War II, and then after that the Americans and the British came up with better aircraft. But at the time that the Zero was first developed, it was probably one of the best fighters in the world. So at the time it did a lot of damage. So it was sort of famous, very famous aircraft from both sides. You know, in Japan it was famous, and people on the other side all knew about it as well. So it's sort of loosely, the main character is loosely based on that chief designer of the Zero. And yeah, that's about it. The rest of it is pretty much all fiction. It sort of follows his life. He was a child and he was interested in aeroplanes, paper aeroplanes, and then he was interested in designing, and he was having these dreams where the Italian aircraft designer was coming to him in his dreams and telling him that he should be an aeronautical engineer. And it was all very Miyazaki. It's very Miyazaki. If you've seen a few Miyazaki animations and you watch this one, it's very typical of what he does. So there's a lot of sort of stuff like that, this sort of fantasy stuff. And then as he gets older, he actually goes to Tokyo University, and these parts are true. The real head designer did actually go to Tokyo University and did aeronautical engineering, and then he went to work for Mitsubishi in Nagoya, which is sort of interesting because we've talked about Mitsubishi in Nagoya previously. There's still Mitsubishi aircraft are still making aircraft parts in Nagoya, so that's sort of interesting because that's real. So he goes to Nagoya. There's some interesting sort of Miyazaki stuff in amongst it. One thing is that there's earthquakes and fire, big earthquake and fire in Tokyo, and there's sort of an overwhelming. With most Miyazaki animations, there's always this backdrop of catastrophe always in the background, which in this case could have been symbolic of the war, or it could have been symbolic of something else. We actually know a lady who's based at a university in Tokyo, and her specialty, she's a teacher at the university, a professor at the university, and her specialty is interpreting animation. That's what she specializes in, and she actually travels the world lecturing around the world on Japanese animation and the hidden meanings behind different parts of Japanese animation, and the real meanings and all that sort of thing. So there's often stuff, and people debate with Miyazaki. You know, those of you who've seen other Miyazaki, like Totoro or Ponyo or any of those, they've always got this. Also, they've always got the underlying tragedy thing. There's always a sick woman. It's interesting. It's interesting in this one too. When he's at university or soon after university, he meets this woman and falls in love with her and marries her, and that's actually true. The real guy did actually get married, but his actual real life was in good health and there's nothing wrong with her. Whereas in the Miyazaki animation, she gets what's she get? Breathing disease. What is it? Tuberculosis, and has to go up into the mountains of Nagano to a sanatorium to recover from tuberculosis, and of course eventually she dies. And that's an underlying theme all the time. That was the same in Totoro. They had the mother in Totoro was in a hospital sick all the time, and in actual fact, in actual real life, the aeronautical engineer's wife was fine, there was nothing wrong with her. But in Miyazaki, in the animation director's life, there was a sick woman. It was might have been his mother, had some terminal disease, and she was always sick. So that's why there's this underlying thing all the time in Miyazaki animations. There always has to be someone who's dying. There's always that dark undertone in Miyazaki. On the surface, however, those of you who haven't seen Miyazaki yet, even if you're not into animation, even if you don't normally sit around watching cartoons, it's really worth, if you're into Japan, it's really worth just watching one Miyazaki. You know, even if you pick, probably this one's not really one of the better ones. It's the main topic of this one was really the romance between the guy, the going to Nagoya and designing the Zero, and then they test fly a couple of prototypes and they crash because the struts aren't strong enough, and he redesigns them, and all aluminium framing, and then redesigns the undercarriage, and there's a bit of that going on during it as well. But probably the main part of the animation is actually dedicated to the romance thing with this dying wife. So it's a bit, it's not terribly captivating really. But if you've never seen a Miyazaki, or never seen a Japanese animation, or never seen a Miyazaki, it's definitely worth. You can get them in English. Most of them have been made into English, and you can usually get them around the world. You can get them on the internet. You can get them from video shops. You know, if you still have video shops wherever you live, you can get them, and you can usually get them in English. There are other languages as well. So yeah, it's worth having a look, because just on the pure surface of it, the images are amazing. You know, they really are works of art. Just about every... Hello, what's going on here? I'll just turn the corner here, guys. There's some drama going on here with the... Oops, hello. Something's collapsed. Car's on its side. Oh yeah, car's on its side down there. I'll just finish this video and then I'm going to make one about this crashed car, guys. So yeah, just finishing up, Miyazaki, the animation itself, the drawings themselves, it's like every one of them is like a work of art. And if you're into Japan, you'll love it, because, you know, even if you're not interested in the plot and you just purely look at the images are amazing. You know, they have the real knack of finding the beautiful scenes of Japan and capturing them into the animations, and they're just amazing. You know, if you're going to pick one like probably Totoro. Ponyo's got a real dark underside, and this one had a real dark underside. But if you can probably pick hello, yeah, good on you. If you probably pick Totoro's probably a good one for scenery. It's a really good one for scenery, and it's worth just watching at least one, just so you can appreciate the artwork in them. And the other thing is that culturally too, if you can, watch them in Japanese, because culturally and the language and the culture and the images together are very real what Japan is about. Because of course these animations were made for Japanese people. They weren't made originally weren't made for the rest of us. So it's all very authentic, and you know, if you love Japan and Japanese culture and Japanese language and Japanese countryside, you'll love it. So anyway, that was Miyazaki generally, and The Wind Rises in particular. So that will go on our anime and manga playlist. Now I'm going to go around this block here and go back to that accident back there and get some video of that for you. More videos coming soon.